Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Roast in the Ceilings podcast. We have a special guest with us today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Keyena Kler. I am a Vancouver influencer and content creator. I kind of got into this from becoming Miss Teen Canada in 2020. With the pandemic happening, it kind of pushed my reign online. And so initially at the time, I was thinking of going to med school, and I kind of just felt like doing something more creative. And I started experimenting with posting online, and it ended up leading to a whole new career and kind of opened this whole new world for me. And that's what I'm doing now.
That is so exciting and such like a different influencer origin story than what we
Mhm.
hear most of the times, I think. I think we hear a lot of things about influencers on the internet that might not necessarily be true. So I'm wondering, just to kick us off, what are
Sure.
some misconceptions about influencing that you want to myth bust right here?
No, I love that you asked me that because I feel like there is actually quite a bit. I think something that people get confused about or sometimes don't understand is I think there's a big discrepancy between big influencers with hundreds of thousands of followers versus small content creators in a local community. And so I think sometimes when people wonder how influencers are making money, they don't post a lot, they're not consistent. Those That's very uncommon to a small content creator because we need to be posting all the time. We're always trying to grow our accounts. We're
Mhm.
kind of always going back and forth with friends and we don't have long-term security. So I think it's kind of interesting. It's not really the most politically correct way to say it, but I think it's a way that everyone understands. I feel like there's a difference between an influencer and then someone who kind of feels like a working class content creator and they're hustling every day and it's not necessarily
Mhm.
easy, and just because one year's great doesn't mean the next year will be.
Mhm.
So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that content creation is actually a career that people do, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're thriving and super
Mhm.
rich and making a ton of money all the time and things are all good. They're actually, working really hard to secure security for a long term.
I love that you brought that up because I think a lot of the
Yeah.
times when we see on our feed these people in their giant mansions or luxury trips,
Yes.
that's the conception we get. And I think on the flip side of that, I'd love it if you were to share a few of your favorite things about influencing. What is it that you enjoy?
Absolutely. I really love the creative freedom and the ability to take an idea in your head and bring it to life. I think it's kind of like telling a story visually, which I know I love. I think that's kind of why we watch movies and TV shows,
Mhm.
right? We want the story and this escape, and I think a lot of people enjoy that part of it. I know I do. I think the other element I enjoy, I always wanted to be self-employed once I kind of got away from the med school um idea. Like once I kind of had let that go, the second thing was being an entrepreneur and being self-employed, but I didn't really have a thing. And this was something that helped me kind of get into that mindset and kind of allowed me to be an entrepreneur without having like a business or a thing, like a product I was
Mhm.
selling. So I love that part of it. I love that, I make my own schedule. I like that investing in myself is investing in the business. Anyone who likes personal development, I think, would really love influencing because you get to always invest into yourself.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of like a specific thing. I mean, products are always great. Getting things sent to you is amazing, especially because you save so much money. So I think that's a really great thing as well. I have like beside me, I have like tons of boxes. It's crazy. But yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of it as well, is like always getting to try
Mhm.
new things or meet people and have these cool experiences and events that you wouldn't normally get if you weren't posting online.
Yeah, that definitely sounds, fun, incredible, a little stressful too if you feel that in there. But I'm
Yeah.
also a little curious, going back to your start, your
Mhm.
like beginnings of becoming an influencer. You mentioned you kind of put the med school idea aside and you started
Yes.
experimenting with posting and making content.
Mhm.
What was the moment? Was there a moment where you're like, hey, this can be a career?
I think it was kind of a gradual thing. And I am the kind of person that I've gone through phases in my life. When you have a hobby and you enjoy it for a bit and then a couple
Mhm.
years later you're into something else. That's always been me. And I think for myself, I started at UBC in 2019, and I kind of was having cold feet. So that was kind of the first red flag that there was something amiss, because I did well in school. I loved science. And even though I loved what I was studying, I kind of didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so that was the first hint. And then for about 18 months, during COVID, actually, I pretty much threw everything at the wall. I tried a variety of different things, and I tried having a baking account. That was the first thing before I was even I didn't even really realize that people were attempting to be an influencer. Like, I didn't think this was an
Mhm.
active thing people were doing. I just thought it kind of just happened to people here and there. Like, they just blow up online overnight. I didn't really think it was something that people were actively trying to pursue. And so at that time, I was just kind of like posting random baking things. I kind of made some YouTube videos, nothing really crazy. And, between competing in Miss Teen Canada, doing that, I experimented with some modeling. I wrote for a magazine for a bit. I tried all different kinds of things. And I ended up looping back at the end of that 18 months to influencing when I saw a TikTok where a girl was talking about what she was doing as a micro influencer and how brands were sending her products just from her posting. And that was the moment I had like this recognition that people actually do this with the intention to become an influencer. It's not just something that happens. Like, people are actually out there posting with the intention to get brands' attention, and they were getting attention with very small numbers. So this really intrigued me. And so I kind of was like, I kind of waited for about a month. Like, I was kind of, I want to do this, I want to do this. And then I finally just ripped the band-aid off and started posting like 5 times a week. And it never really went away. I loved it. I enjoyed every part of it. And I think in that first year, I really wanted to get better at my skills and, make aesthetic content that I loved and, create beautiful photos at the time and kind of experiment with video because it was just kind of starting on Instagram. And so what was interesting is that year, I ended up going back to UBC in person after the pandemic. I ended up joining a sorority because majority of my friends from UBC cheer had graduated. So I didn't really have too many friends that were kind of in my classes because I did nutrition, which was quite a small major. So I made all these new friends and they were so supportive of my social media. And that really made me think like, people are, I think that recognition from other people, especially in real life, made me realize that there was something there. And so I just kind of took it and ran with it and just made it a huge priority in my life.
That is so sweet. Like hearing about this girlhood, this connection within all your friends is so
Hmm.
heartwarming. But that leads us to a question that we had actually that we wanted to ask you.
Yes.
Your content is super, it's girly, it's
Thank you.
feminine, it's this community of like women together. How do you think
Mhm.
that online girlhood kind of compares to that in-person girlhood that you've experienced?
I think there's definitely some differences. I think one thing that I think is interesting about people online, I think especially when people are posting, is I think they're lonelier than you think. And I think they are kind of searching for that connection, which it's really nice because I had so much support in real life between Miss Teen Canada and also between posting on social media. And I think having that support really pushed me to go for it. And once I had that support, I started searching for that in the online space as well because as much as I have support from people in my real life, which I'm so grateful for, it's kind of nice when you have people that actually understand what you're doing for your career. And so for me, I think it's great to have support in your real everyday life, but it's also amazing to have support in your community. And so it took me a few years to meet my people, but I'm definitely really grateful for it because I feel very seen at this time in my life. And I think it takes time to make those relationships, whether it's online or in real life. But I think you just have to kind of put yourself out there and, kind of be a little bit ready to maybe not be received super well by everyone just because not everyone's looking for that. But I think putting yourself out there and finding those communities can be so valuable because I've made friends that are so dear to me now. And I've only known them for a couple years and I met them online, which is crazy.
Aw, I love that
Mhm.
appreciation of support system and girlhood, especially we're
Yeah.
all about female solidarity on our podcast. So I
Mhm.
I
love that
love it.
thing.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense of like being an influencer with a community, I
Mhm.
think a lot of times when we think about social media, we think about it as amount of likes, amount of shares, as
Mhm.
audience rather than community.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, what was your experience building community instead of audience?
I think it is something that is hard to balance for sure because I think growth is a goal for most creators because it gives us more leverage when we are working in this industry because we can show brands upfront that we have somewhat of a guaranteed value we can provide if we have an
Mhm.
engaged community. So that's kind of part of it. But I also think nurturing that community is so important. And I think one of the ways I really focused on building it is I think when I was in school, I really tried to interact through stories. That was one thing I would do. I would ask like polls, I would have questions and really try to like get to know what my audience
Mhm.
wants. I think it's really hard because you're so used to making content about yourself and your life, but you really are providing a service, right? Like people need to resonate with your content and you really do have to think about they call it like you want to create unselfish content and you really do because you want your audience to feel seen because that's where that connection happens.
Mhm.
So I think that is something important is like trying to know your immediate community and then try to build off of that. So sometimes you make posts that are more relatable and those are for your, I don't want to say the word fan, but like your most loyal fans and your most loyal people in your audience, you know, the people that are commenting on every post, that are always liking your stuff, are sending it, or they will comment back on a story. Like those are the people you really want to create the content for. And in a way, like they're they're your best fans and best customers and they will help your business the best, but they're also your best advertisement because if they like you, they're going to share your stuff. So it's having that relationship. Like if you
Mhm.
don't have that genuine relationship, it won't benefit you. So
Mhm.
you kind of want to make sure that you have a beneficial relationship both ways so that it's not just transactional, if that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
definitely does. And
Yeah.
when you talk about growth as an influencer, it really leads me to be curious about how you shift and frame your mindset around that. Because, we've been podcasting for a while. We understand that the
Yes.
algorithm can be very unstable. The algorithm, it decides what it wants on a day-to-day
Yup.
basis. Sometimes it loves you, sometimes it doesn't. So how do you keep
Mhm.
your mental strong when it comes to dealing with things like that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest battles for sure is like the ups and downs of putting yourself out there online because ultimately you can tinker around with it as much as you want, but you have limited control over your performance, which is frustrating. I think I hired a team this year, which was a it was kind of impulsive to be honest with you. It's not really like me to do something like that, but I met with this woman I know, her handles the stylish wordsmith, and she's kind of like an acquaintance I had at the time. And I knew her in real life and I knew she started an agency. So I thought, let me meet with her. Let me just talk to her. And I instantly loved her and I loved her partner, Frida. So we've been working together for a while and they really helped me realize that a lot of social media is kind of just putting in the reps and because I have them kind of as like my front line of defense now, I kind of don't really sweat the ups and downs anymore. And I
Mhm.
think not everyone can hire a team, of course, but I think what they taught me was, the most important thing is that you show up. You show up and you're intentional because at the end of the day, you can't control the algorithm. It's kind of like the press, like, celebrities can't control what's said about them. So you kind of just have to keep carrying on. And I think it's kind of simple advice, but I think it's really important in life, right? When you have goals, I think the most important thing is to believe in yourself and to remind yourself why you're doing it. Like I love posting and even when a video flops, it's heartbreaking, of course, but I enjoy posting so much that it's almost worse to not post.
Mhm.
So I think that's what really fuels me is how much I enjoy it and how much I love it. And I think when I'm starting to feel the frustrations of the algorithm, that's when I need to dial back and really get back into that inspiration. Like, what kind of content do I love? Why am I doing this? Or even like maybe I need to like rebrand. Like, what do I want to change? What's not working? If I'm burning out, like, how can I make a shift so that I can enjoy this more so that these numbers don't bother me as much.
I love that you mentioned your love for
Yeah.
posting.
Oh,
That makes
thank
me really
you.
happy. And I know a lot
Yeah.
of the girls who listen to our podcast are trying to find their passion, trying to find
Hmm.
what they truly love. And I'm wondering what your advice would be to someone
Mhm.
searching.
Sure. I think I had a lot of experience with this because when I was literally like maybe a year or two older than you two, I was in that like no man's land of I decided I didn't want to go to med school anymore, but I didn't have anything else. And it's like the uncertainty of that is it's stressful and you feel lost, which is like I've never really felt lost. So for me, it was like just the worst feeling. But I think what really, really helped me is I heard this quote. I did like a business workshop that year, and I heard this quote that clarity comes from action. And I come back to it, like I heard that years ago, but I come back to it all the time because I really do believe in trial and error. And I think trying as many things as you can, like
Mhm.
throwing all different kinds of things at the wall and seeing what sticks, I feel like that is one of the best ways to find your passion. And it doesn't even necessarily have to manifest into a career. It could just be like a side hustle you do or something you just do for yourself. I think it's kind of cheesy, but like when you know, you know. And I think trying all those different things and kind of realizing what you've kept up with for, the longest amount of time, that kind of gives you a good hint about how much you enjoy things. And I think life is also strange in the way that you grow and change so much. So sometimes your passions change as well, and that's okay. And sometimes you revisit things you used to love too, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know for sure, like Isabella said, a lot of people are here stressing that they don't have their thing yet, and we just want to remind you,
Yeah.
Kiena's reminding you, it'll be okay, you'll find it.
It will be. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's also a good sign that you're stressed about it because I think
Mhm,
it shows that you're almost passionate for
mhm,
finding the passion. Like you want something to work towards. You are ambitious and you want to have goals and you
mhm,
want to be working towards something, and I think that means that you're going to find it for sure. Like it just might take a little bit longer than you think.
mhm. For sure. And I'm a little curious too when you talk about being an influencer, right? Like being in the public eye, how do you handle being perceived by so many people? How do you kind of wrap your head around that?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's funny because when I was in high school, I think I was always intrigued by this idea, but it was never a thought that I would do this at all. And I think it was also too that I was a pretty private person. Like I liked to be mysterious. That was kind of my vibe. And so it all kind of started when I had applied to Miss Teen Canada and I hadn't told a soul that I was doing this. I saw an opportunity online and I was like, I think when I was 18, I just had this like feeling of like I can do anything. And so I applied. I was like, I'm only going to be young once and my teenage years are running out. So I signed up and applied and I ended up getting in as a finalist, which was amazing. And I tell the story actually quite a bit, so you might have heard it from somewhere, but I didn't tell anyone I applied. But somehow we in cheer we have base partners. And so my partner somehow found out I was a finalist on like Facebook. I had no idea it was even posted. But she found out and she like put it in our group chat. She's like, "Oh my god, Keyena, you're a Miss Teen Canada finalist. This is incredible." And my cheer team was so supportive. And to
Mm,
me, I was like, "Oh my god, worst nightmare. Everyone's finding out what I'm doing." And then I kind of had this like light bulb moment. I was like, if I don't talk about this,
mm,
why would anyone vote for me in the public vote? Like, why would I win? And so I kind of realized in that moment, like, I was like, I signed up for this. I really deserve to give myself justice and going for it and,
mm,
giving myself the best shot. And that was the first little bit of ripping that band-aid off and putting myself out there. And because I had done that already and, it ended up working out very well with me winning, it kind of gave me, and also to like the support, like you have way more people out there rooting for you than you think. I think that's something a lot of people, I was always the person like everyone's out to get me. I was
mm.
like, I just like, I didn't want to tell anyone because I thought people would be so mean and negative about it. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised by how kind and supportive people were. And so I always tell people like you have more people out there than you think because it's true. And so that really helped me rip that band-aid off. And once it was off, I think that's how I kind of started posting.
Mhm,
And I think too, for me, like I've also helped friends start as well, friends that I've known in real life. And something I've told them is, I'm doing it. Let's do it together. Or like, you kind of just have to, once you rip the band-aid off, that's kind of the worst part of it because you're already out there, and it only gets easier from there. And the other thing is too, like if you're competitive, for me, I was like, I would hate if other people were getting these opportunities that I want and I'm not getting them because I'm not putting myself out there. So I don't know if I necessarily answered the question, but I think
yeah.
that was kind of how I ripped the band-aid off of,
Mhm,
getting over what people thought. And I think in continuing to do that, I think the longer I pursue
Mhm.
this path and the more I look at people in my career like Alex Earl who are doing so well, I've kind of realized you can't control the algorithm and you can't control what people say about you. Even like Taylor Swift, she has this groundbreaking album that's breaking all kinds of records, and there's never been more discourse about how bad this album is, but numbers don't really lie. She's still doing so well. So you kind of realize even if bad things are said about you and even if
Mhm.
people don't like what you're doing and you're perceived negatively, it all kind of helps you anyways because you can't control it, and trying to will only make you miserable. So that's kind of how I deal with being perceived. It's still obviously a struggle at times, but I really try to bring it back to myself. Like if I'm okay with how I'm being perceived or I know what my intention is, I think that really grounds me.
I love that so much because
Mm.
I think throughout this episode you brought up a lot of the themes of investing in yourself and believing in
Yeah.
yourself, taking that chance on yourself. I also mentioned how when you were in high school you were more of a private kind of person.
Yeah.
So to all the girls listening who might want to be an influencer or have other goals
Hmm.
they want to reach, but they're a little scared to believe in
Yeah.
themselves and take that shot, how would you encourage them to build that mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. I think high school is an interesting time in your life because I think it's for me like I wish I would have been the person I am now then, and even then I was like proud of myself for staying true to my values, but it's definitely hard to put yourself out there when you see people constantly. Like I don't think we realize how much of an impact the people have around us, even if they're not our friends, even if they don't really have a stake in our life, it does affect you, the people around you and what they think. So I think for myself, what I would do is you can kind of start in a soft launch kind of a way, just start posting more. Or you can even make another account. Or you can also start like for most people, I think Instagram's pretty mainstream, but TikTok's less mainstream, YouTube's less mainstream. So there's quite a few different ways to do it. And I think also too, like something I did, like, I always felt like I had to announce what I was doing. I had to let people know, I had to inform. You don't have to do that. Like, I knew this one girl in high school who she was posting a lot. I had no idea what she was doing at the time, but I know now, like now she's got like 1 million followers. So it's like she was posting all the time. And I heard through the grapevine she actually got bullied for it, which is so unfortunate. But it kind of all worked out. Like she's doing so well now. She lives in a beautiful apartment and she's got, all these beautiful material things. And it kind of looks like the life she wanted, back in high school that she now has, which is so incredible. And so I think sometimes you really have to just believe in yourself and think about what you want. And I think it's sometimes hard, but I think the people that are your real friends will support you. And I think it's hard to see that in high school because everything feels so end all be all. But,
Mhm.
things always blow over. I think when I was your guys' age, my favorite show was Gossip Girl. And I
Mm.
like still
Yeah.
is. I was watching it when I was getting ready. Um, but one thing I loved is that even though like these awful rumors would be all over the internet, everything always blew over, and I think that is actually very true in life. And so that first post may be very difficult, but you don't even have to tell anyone. Maybe it's your first post, maybe no one else does, but once you do it, it's done. Like that's the thing is you can kind of let it go. And I also say done is better than perfect, right?
Mm.
Like I have some projects coming up that I want to be perfect, but I know they won't be because I'm only going to get better as I pursue them. So I think that's really important too. But I definitely empathize because it can be so difficult to put yourself out there. But I think remembering your why is so important, like why you want to do something and what you're hoping to gain. I think that is something that's always fueled me as well.
I love the idea of staying rooted. I feel like that's another theme we
Hmm.
had a lot, going back to what you care about as a person and your own roots. And I absolutely
Hmm.
love that. I think to wrap us up today, we can go back to
Yeah.
our roots of Vancouver.
Yes.
When Maggie and I were
Yes.
watching your content, we
Yeah.
were like, where do you find
Amazing.
new things to do in Vancouver? Do you have any
Yeah.
Vancouver
I love it.
recommendations?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Vancouver, everyone says there's not a lot to do in Vancouver, and I think if you don't look, I
Mm.
agree. But if you look, there's actually quite a few things. I think the Christmas market is super great. I think, are you guys into like holiday and Christmas things or just in
We're
general
into
Vancouver?
anything. We're
Okay, perfect. Yeah. There's so many things to do in Vancouver. I think, yeah, like one of my favorites is the Christmas market, but I also love just being in Yale Town. There's so many nice
Mm.
lights at this time. And Earl's also gets like super decked out for Christmas. I'm trying to think like girly things to do. I personally love shopping. I'm like such a shopaholic and I love Main Street for shopping. I feel like it's not as known as the malls are, but they've got some beautiful stores like Front and Company is a really cute consignment store. And they've this top I'm wearing actually, it's actually like a Burberry and I got it from Front and Company for like $60. So, Burberry's pretty bougie. And I was like, I can't believe they have this here. So you can find some really cool pieces there. There's craft stores on Main Street. I like Urban Source. That one's really great. I've been going there since I was a kid. So that's one of my favorite places. Home Sense also. I feel like for your guys' age, Home Sense is also great. Um, yeah, there's so many. I think also too, there's like charm bracelet making places now. Like I think Shea Lily Jewelry. I've been dying to go there. I haven't been, but I'm dying to go there. Yeah, and there's so many cool new restaurants opening. Like I think one thing I always envied about Toronto was they have so many one-offs and
Mhm.
now we're getting some, which is great. So I tried Lucia on Main recently. That was really good if you like Italian food. There's this other place called I think it's called June on Cambie. It looks incredible. I think it's French and that looks really cool and it's kind of like more of American French. So I think it'd be a little bit more approachable. They've got like ravioli and like chocolate desserts. So like I feel like that's right in the wheelhouse of fun things.
Oh my gosh, love. We are
Mhm.
taking notes. We have
We
to
were
go
taking
now.
notes.
Yeah. Yeah. And like there's just so many cool things. Like there's a Frozen Broadway musical. I actually went to that last night. That was really great. Yeah. Really fun. If you guys like arts and theater, I'm like getting into it. I feel like it's so fun.
Mhm. I
Oh
didn't
my
Mhm.
even know
god.
that was happening, but now I really want to go.
Yeah, and you know what? The tickets aren't that bad. Like they're in between. Usually a show can be like upwards of $100 a ticket, but there's some around 40. So it's a small theater too. So like even if you get like the cheapest ticket, you're still gonna get a great seat.
You heard it here first. The Vancouver
Yes,
Steal.
yes. There are things to do if you look for them.
Our thing.
Yeah, and
Thank
like
you so
tons of
much.
coffee shops, right? Like there's
Oh my
so
god.
many things. Yeah.
Always. Always the coffee
Hmm.
shops.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
Vancouver matcha.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for coming on today, Kiana. We'll put in the description
Absolutely.
too, but do you want to shout out
Yeah.
your handles?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. My handles are at Keyena Kler, the same on everything. So I got to
Mhm.
spell it because people will actually spell it wrong. So it's going to be KeyEnaKler, and that's everywhere. So wherever you are on social media, I'll be there.
First of all, props to you for getting the same name on everything. That is very difficult.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, I'm relieved that that has happened
Mhm.
because when I first started on TikTok, it was different. And that because it was me blocking myself. But because, like, you know how like TikTok used to be musically? So I
Mm.
had old musically accounts from like elementary school. And
Mhm.
so I was like, shoot, my name's gone. So I made a second account, waited till that one expired, and I took my old username. So I waited it out for a bit, but yeah, now I'm the same on everything, and it's the best feeling.
Yeah, that is so funny. Is there
Yeah.
any last thing you want to say to our viewers? Any last message, thoughts?
Yeah, I think my most important thing I could share with your viewers and whoever's watching is I think my most important life lesson I've learned that's helped me with all my goals and my relationship with myself and just, staying happy and healthy and grounded is just know your worth. I think that's like my most important message is
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you have to be happy with the things you're doing in your life and what you are working towards. And I think it's really easy to get caught up in what people think and people pleasing, but at the end of the day, you are going to be your number one person. So always know your worth. That's so important to me.